So 5 tips for hiking in Tenerife. Tenerife is a fantastic place for hiking. So you really need to get out and enjoy all the beautiful scenery, the volcano, Teide National Park. There's so much to enjoy. There's so many places where you can go and hike. So I want to give you 5 tips that will help you. My first tip would be to set off early. You know, if you set off early, maybe get the earliest bus. I use the public buses to get out on these hikes. If you set off early, you get much more time out there on the hike. And you'll need the time because sometimes the climbs are quite steep. It can be quite tiring. It always takes longer than you think. And there aren't so many buses going back. You need to pace your hike so that you can get your bus time. But the best thing to do is to get out there early because it's cool and it's not hot. So you want to do your miles early. That would be my advice. My second tip would be plan your route. There are so many routes, they're well marked, especially in Teide National Park. There's so many routes you could probably walk for days and days and days. I'll put a link below to the website which marks out the routes. I like doing long distance hikes or long distance footpaths. So I chose the GR131 and chose to do it in stages, and that was a good way of doing it because it meant that I could continue the walk when I had an extra day and do the whole 62 miles across Tenerife and take in the Teide National Park on the way. So that was a really fantastic one. If you want to see how that went, look at the links above, my Tenerife hiking adventure. But I would advise to stick to the footpaths so you don't get lost. It is possible to get lost, as I found on one of mine. So plan your route and stick to the footpaths and you'll be fine. Tip 3 would be make sure you're prepared. Take the right equipment that you'll need and make sure you've got enough water, number 1. So water, I take about 2 or 3 litres each day. When I go hiking, I've got like a water bladder in my pack, which is really invaluable. Make sure you've got enough water because there's no water out here whatsoever. You can't purify water. You really need to have the water you need, and you can get very thirsty hiking. Also, I'd advise take trekking poles with you because they really help going up the footpaths like this. Really recommend trekking poles. I'd recommend you take a number of layers of clothing so you can strip the clothing off when you need be. It can be very cold, especially as it gets later in the day, early in the day and late at day. It can be cold. It can go to 0 degrees in Teide, believe it or not, and then it can go up to 20 degrees or more during the day. So I recommend take a number of layers. That's why I bring a backpack so I can store the different layers and carry my water. So make sure you're prepared. Make sure you have some hiking boots that are walked in, that you're comfortable with, that can stand up to this hard ground, which is very rocky and can be very jagged and can be quite hard on your feet. So walk in your boots, trekking poles, water and clothing, and take a hat as well, and sun cream and sunglasses because it can get very hot. So it's very important you're prepared when you come out hiking in Tenerife. My 4th tip would be look out for the signs. You saw those markers there. There are markers and there are signs on the footpaths, but you need to keep your wits about you. You can easily miss them. So I would recommend you buy the guidebook as well. I'll put the link to the guidebook I used for the GR131, which has a map, has maps as well. So you need to keep your wits about you when you get out here. As you can see, it's pretty wild and you can get lost if you don't keep your wits about you. Here's another marker here, there painted on. That's a GR131. That confirms you're on the right path, but as you can see, it's not 100% obvious where the path is when you go through woodland. So keep your wits about you, and if you do go off the trail, retrace your steps, go back to the most recent marker point, and don't get lost out here, because you don't want to get lost out here and get stranded, and then as the temperature drops to freezing at night. My fifth tip would be do some practice hikes closer to home first. Make sure you're comfortable hiking, say 10 miles or so, and also make sure you're comfortable climbing hills and some steep inclines. You do need a sort of general fitness level to do these hikes. You can hear that I'm slightly out of breath now, but I've been doing hikes now for at least the last year, so fairly regularly. But if I'd set off doing these as my first hike a year ago, I would be really struggling. I don't know if I could do it. So I would say make sure your fitness is at a certain point. It's good to have a goal, isn't it, and work towards being fit enough. But do some hikes closer to home. Get prepared before you plan your hiking in Tenerife. And I wouldn't just come out here if you've not been hiking before. I'd also recommend, if you haven't been hiking before, you definitely come out with somebody else, not on your own, just in case there's any problems. And there's advantages with solo hiking and hiking with others. You can check out the video above, see some of my thoughts on solo hiking. I hike solo, but I'm more experienced now than I was. But really, they recommend you hike with others on these trails. So those are my tips for hiking in Tenerife. I hope they're helpful. If you like this video, please press the like button, and please consider subscribing if you want to see more day tripper adventures and more information about hiking, walking, wild camping and different activities outdoors. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.